So we took a week off of Intellectual Dollar Tree, and we're going to give you an old episode, or as some might say, a classic episode. This is episode 25. We recorded this in November of 2019. Enjoy.
The internet is a big dumpster.
The last thing they would think is that I was intelligent. But little do they know, I got documents. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. That's how I find out who you truly are. Who you really are. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb.
I'm just playing dumb. They thinking I'm joking, I'm really saying something. They thinking I'm simple, I'm really complex. So really you're taking me out of context. Yeah, you don't know enough. Cause really I don't give it to you slow enough. I speed it up to try and throw you off. And by the look at your face, that's how I know you're lost. Some see the glass is half empty. I don't even see the glass no more. About the future, I don't focus on the past no more. I used to let it get me down, but that was back before I found my own way. I'm carving out my own lane. I didn't like the rules, so I started my own game. They wanna focus on the money and the cocaine, and they're supported by an industry that won't change. It's a crying shame.
I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb. I just play stupid all the time. Make you think that I got nothing on my mind. Like I'm just some kind of fucking idiot. But I'm thinking about all kinds of shit. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. Oh yeah, I watch you run your mouth. Find out what you really all about. I watch you run your mouth. I just play dumb. I just play dumb. When it comes to interrogation, I just play dumb. I ain't telling you shit. What's going on in my mind, that's in my mind, that's me. You don't need to know about it unless I'm projecting it directly in your direction through music. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb. Ooh, wouldn't you like to know? Little do they know about my documentation. I got books full of what I'm bound to do. I just play dumb. How I get my information. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information. I just play dumb. That's how I get my information.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. This show's live every Wednesday from about 7 p.m. to about 8 p.m., 8:30, and then we do some post-game talk about usually homelessness. Usually.
We talk about social issues.
A lot of social issues, you know, things, the social sciences, not the sciences, things that the subject matter of our show are generally what we believe to be wrong about.
But like the sciences can solve those problems. So it's like tangentially related.
They can inform the solution at the very least. Yeah, that makes sense. Without data, you're not even sure the extent of a problem. So yeah, of course you use math and science. So anyway, I'm producer Dave. I fucking run the show here. This is my co-host. What's your name?
I'm HK Perrin. You can find me on Twitter at HK Perrin. Perrin like Leon Perrin's, the Worcestershire sauce.
So we're just going to get right into this. We've done a lot of Sam Harris on this show, and we're going to do another Sam Harris. This is him on the Eric Weinstein show. We're going to skip all of this part about Donald Trump, immigration, Nassim Talib, Jeffrey Epstein, and we're going to go straight to and more. They're basically going to start talking a little bit about social media, and then it's going to be a wine fest about people making fun of the two of them. I'm sorry, entering the conversation. Bad faith changes everything.
Misery loves company, right?
Oh, yeah, this is like next level stupid. And I encourage man, this is a weird thing to say. So that you can get the full context of this, I encourage you to, like, I don't know, if you have to go to the dentist or something really unpleasant, you could just add this to your unpleasant experience and listen to the whole fucking thing.
If what you were doing was more unpleasant, would this make it less unpleasant?
I guess it depends on what. Is your dentist cool, or are they trying to hurt your face? Like, because it's somewhere in that realm.
But I mean, like, is unpleasantness? Does it add to each other, or does it average?
It might distract you from the dentist how unpleasant this shit is. And speaking of unpleasantness, we're just going to get right into it. This is where they've already sort of broken the ice on the social media thing, and they've mentioned it a couple times, but this is where they really get into it. And for the first time ever, they're going to name people that they don't like instead of just saying the left.
So it's like, how much time am I going to... So now, like, in my use of social media, like, I'll get on Twitter, I'll see something outrageous, I'll get triggered by it, but, I mean, I'll get off 30 seconds later and it's over.
Hot.
Right? Whereas if I were to do...
Oh, that drop. Here we go.
How much time am I going to... So now, like, in my use of social media, like, I'll get on Twitter, I'll see something outrageous, I'll get triggered by it, but, I mean, I'll get off 30 seconds later and it's over. Right? Whereas if I were to do the thing that entangled
Soundboard.
me, it could,
we need that.
It could take up much more of my life. And so
it's very interesting to me that you've gotten off Twitter as you become more.
Oh no! I feel like
very interesting to me that you've gotten off.
Oh, so good.
Focused on the meditation and mindfulness part of your offering,
right? I mean, there's the juxtaposition there may be somewhat accidental, but the vividness, there's a spell that's been broken for me with respect to social media. Like I had paid lip service to this and just didn't know that it was just lip service. But I had been talking about Twitter and social media generally as a psychological experiment that we were running on ourselves, to which no one had consented, right? We just enrolled half of...
No, you totally consent to going on to fucking Twitter.
Yeah, it's like you agree to the terms of service when you register.
And also you choose to just click your little bookmark or open your little app. Like, this is... the problem with Twitter isn't that nobody consented to it. And like the fact that he's calling it some kind of social experiment, again, he's like divining the intent of people. I'm pretty sure the intent was to make money and sell ads.
Yeah.
That requires zero assumptions because that's exactly their business model. If you were to look at their like whatever business model, like documentation they have out there, like, they have to submit things like to, I don't know, the IRS or the state or whatever. And it says what their business is. Yeah. And they're selling ads.
Yeah. They're an advertising company that just happens to use social media to distribute those ads.
And Sam Harris is making them a ton of money, and so is Eric Weinstein, because people go on there specifically to dunk on both of these people. Dave Rubin is making them way more money, though.
Do you think that he doesn't know, though, that you don't have to be on Twitter?
You know what? I used to think that, before we started this show, I thought these guys were, like, brighter. And I do mean guys. There's one maybe woman in the IDW. That's that lady who runs Killette in Cell Esquire.
So, yeah, you mean men.
Men. Yeah. Fellas. Yeah, I don't know if they don't know they don't have to be on Twitter. I know if you're a public figure, you kind of have to be on there. But Sam Harris has so goddamn much money, he can just hire somebody to be like, hey, here's $3,000 a month. You don't have to really do anything, but when I put up a new episode, you better notice and tweet it out. Thank you for engaging in the marketplace of ideas. Like, you don't have to be on Twitter. In fact, I know people who are not on Twitter.
They're generally happier too.
Not only that, but they didn't have to like fight off the Twitter people who were trying to put them on Twitter without their consent. Nothing like that happened.
I know people who don't have Facebook either, and they also seem a bit happier. Although they don't get invited to as many things. They
probably are invited. They're just not aware that they've been invited to as many things because they're like, oh, this, when you start thinking of who should be there, maybe their face is in your mind. You just don't see it. Oh, this is just going to get worse.
Humanity in this thing, and we're just, let's see what happens. And it's clearly having effects that are at best non-optimal, right? At worst, catastrophic. And I was talking about this and thinking in these terms, but still totally embedded in the activity of taking Twitter seriously and feeling that it was a professional necessity. And on some level, it was just sticky enough, emotionally. Like this is, because I'm getting a lot of my news that way. I'm following smart people. I want to see what articles they're reading, and
he got off, and it was sticky enough.
And then somebody like Nassim Taleb says something, outrageously stupid that is, directed at me, right? And it goes.
If I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if you were here, but Kara Swisher, and when she talked to Sam Harris, she just fucking laid it out in like one sentence. And it's like really important, and I'm going to paraphrase, but I'm super close. She said, y'all want to be loud in the courtyard, but you don't want anybody to talk back to you.
Yeah, I think we covered that on the show, didn't we?
Yeah, like the Sunday show. Yeah. And it was the best.
Yeah.
I had to sit through a fucking hour and 5 minutes of him trying to wear her out, but he did realize that when he wore her out, that she was not. You don't want to deal with worn out Kara Swisher. I wish she would have also brought up that he was like born with like tens of millions of dollars, but she wants access to him so she can do that to him again.
This is going out to hundreds of thousands of people, and so it's an opportunity for me to tell them to fuck off, and so I find some way to say that, and this thing begins playing out, and to the degree that I've stepped away, which is like 95%, now when I come back and I see, some of my friends, I see you, embroiled with, Claire Lehman or somebody. And
Claire Lehman is the editor-in-chief for Killette. That's basically an IDW magazine that now everybody's calling them Incel Esquire or Skull Measuring Weekly. It's pretty funny. Skull Measuring Weekly was yeah, because they posted an article about like the long lost science of phrenology and what it can teach us today. I'm not even kidding. Andy Ngo worked for them. He was one of their editors when they were all freaked out about Antifa and posted all these fake lists of Antifa that people kept feeding to him and shit. It was amazing.
It does look like I'm now in touch with the.
Well, you saw that get diffused?
Yeah, no, and I think the skillful diffusal of those conflicts is its own public good that
the thing is I've
try to maximize. Yeah,
there are people that I can't diffuse because I don't think they want the thing diffused. Like you went on this person Nice Mango's podcast.
Yeah, that.
What does he mean by diffuse?
He means he had an argument with and I'm going to back this up a little bit too here. I mean, he had an argument sort of with Claire Lehman. She runs an IDW. Skull Measuring Weekly that I just mentioned a bit ago. They like disagreed about something and then they hashed it out because they largely agree and they're like on the same gravy train, right? Mm-hmm. And so he diffused that. That means, they either agreed to disagree or whatever, right? And now it's being juxtaposed with the people who don't agree with them, disagreeing with them on Twitter. Like, this person who agrees with me on almost everything, we were able to like come to some sort of truce on this like minuscule thing that we didn't agree on, or something she wrote that I didn't necessarily like, versus like, no, these people disagree with everything that we're saying and they think we're a joke. Why can't we diffuse them in the same way?
So by diffuse, he means win the argument. He can't win the argument.
Right. Or the argument just stopped, like, because they're like, I guess we disagree on this. And he's probably able to do that with the lady who publishes, we'll call it Skull Measuring Weekly for this, for the purpose of this broadcast.
SMW,
that's right. But she doesn't like, it doesn't seem like, at least the things she publishes aren't fundamentally in disagreement with the things that people like Weinstein and Harris are publishing. So it's just easier to disagree around the edges than to like disagree at the core of on a fundamental set of things. So what's going to happen here also, he said her name is Ina, also known as Nice Mangoes. Her conversation with Sam Harris was our first podcast of this. Like our first show was the Polite Conversations with Ina. I like her a lot. She's really cool. She's an ex-Muslim, and she challenged him. And at one point during the conversation, he said something and she was like, "Oh dear." So she became incredulous with him. And, so they're going to throw her under the bus. The problem that I see here is that they're doing this and all she's doing is posting his own words and criticizing him for it. And, she's like her podcast is tiny. Like, so now she's just going to get all these douchebags like going after her. This is it's like irresponsible to go after somebody, who like gets less than 1% of the audience of even probably Eric Weinstein's new show, I think.
But Sam Harris is not one to avoid punching down.
That's correct. So we're I'll turn off the side chain, and I kind of want to listen to this whole exchange here.
On public good that
the thing is I've
try
been,
to maximize. Yeah,
there are people that I can't
that.
diffuse because I don't think they want the thing diffused. Like you went on this person Nice Mangoes podcast.
Yeah, that talk about a no good deed going unpunished.
There's just something.
I did
wrong.
my best to launch her podcast.
There's something wrong with that account because there's many ways in which it seems quite reasonable.
Yeah, and then it just rated into mental illness.
Well, there's
Whoa.
Like, that's a nice lady. I've heard her podcast. If you want, maybe we won't listen to that episode again, but we can listen to the first 5 or 10 minutes of one of her shows and we could take a look at her Twitter feed. That's a cool lady. Like, she is not, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with people who have like, that are not neurotypical either. I want to be real clear there. Like,
yeah, like that was bad on several levels.
And she just doesn't like you. Like, she thought you were an asshole when you went on her show, and she thinks you're an asshole now. That doesn't mean she's mentally ill. It means she doesn't fucking like you. Like, some people don't fucking like you. But again, this is like I don't know. I don't want to guess her age. I hate guessing age. She's younger than we are. Maybe right around your age, if I had to guess. And she just doesn't have some massive following. And I don't understand why they're doing this. Like, if he did it to us, by the way, I would be ecstatic. If he was like, I saw this thing they were making fun of it called the Intellectual Dollar Tree. All of a sudden my phone would start buzzing at me telling me my site was being DDoSed and shit. But like, I don't know.
That would be the best thing that happened to us.
Second best only to the possibility of Scientology coming for us, because we could grift on that for a decade. You're talking about you don't know what to want to do with the rest of your life. We can go on the anti-Scientology grift together.
There's a personal nastiness about it that doesn't let up.
Yeah.
And a lack of charity. And what I find is that there are certain things I can do to slow down that kind of negative experience. And then there are certain diehard actors, some of whom are quite polite and charming and funny, who just will not, like, their thing is they will ride this to the most negative place if they can get there.
Or maybe their belief about what you're saying is that you're saying a bunch of shit that is negative and bad. Like, why are they assuming bad faith? I thought they don't like that when other people do it. Like, aren't they just assuming the worst faith?
Do they not like that when other people do it?
They don't like it when people, no, they
because they sure do it a lot.
But they're, what is that? Accuse your enemy of the thing that it is that you are doing.
Oh yeah.
Always do that. Yeah. They're like assuming like the worst faith possible on behalf of people they don't even know. These people may just have legitimate disagreements with them. Like, yeah. Like we make
it's okay to disagree.
We make a joke about entering the marketplace of ideas in bad faith, not because we really come here in bad faith and don't believe everything we say, but because it's like such a thing that keeps being repeated by the folks who people generally call intellectual dark web. They talk about bad faith actors and shit. It's like, well, we're here in bad faith.
They may not even use that terminology, but what they say is, they accuse people of doing that in all sorts of different ways.
Right. You're out to get me.
Yeah.
Like, it's a conspiracy theory, right? Like, this is all a conspiracy theory about the people who disagree with with popular people and make fun of them. What, have they never seen anything?
Yeah, it's like the reality that I see is not real reality. You can't possibly just disagree with me. You must be doing it for some other reason.
That sub-community, I've been talking about in terms of, we have diversity and inclusion, which I'm willing to say is a good thing. And then it needs a different function, which is interoperability and exclusion, because there's certain people who can't be at the table for a conversation if it's going to progress.
Okay, so stop saying that you want to like have all ideas on the table, because you're saying there's certain people who aren't going to let a conversation progress. Maybe they like will disagree with you on a point, and they're like, no, I really don't. I'm not going to we can't just let this go. Like, I want to keep talking about this because I disagree with you on this. Even if they're like, no, I think you're fucking stupid, and here's why. Like, why can't they be involved in the marketplace of ideas? Like, why, like, maybe your idea isn't wearing a suit, but it's still your idea. I mean, if you're threatening to kill them or something, sure, but that's illegal. Like,
yeah, like violence should be the line,
right? And then you're not engaging in ideas anyway. You're engaging in violence.
Yeah,
they just don't want to be mocked. And like,
yeah, because like no one's threatening violence against these.
They probably
guys.
get the average the occasional crackpot, but so do we.
But that's not who they're talking about.
No, they're talking about Ina. And like the people who exchange video clips and like the part of the community I'm like, that's like one of my favorite groups of people that I hang out with on Twitter is the people who go after Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, Eric Weinstein, Stefan Molyneux. Like that's where I get some of the ideas for this show. That community doesn't mean them any harm. We all just think they're wrong and to some degree hilarious.
It kind of shows that they have no argument against the criticisms, though. Because if they legitimately had an argument against the criticisms, they would just argue that rather than just complaining that there are criticisms.
I don't think they're like, oh, I won't dignify that with a response. But what do but then what are they doing here? All they're doing is they're just dignifying it by like complaining. I don't know. I wish he would just say, Ina said this about me and I think she was wrong. I'll link to can I send you this so that people can check it out in the show notes? And then you move the fuck on.
Yeah.
Or maybe if I think it was Eric brought her up, maybe Sam would go, hey, I went on her show and she's like, a much smaller creator. I don't really want to talk about that. Like,
I heard a saying recently. It's if you can't argue the facts, you argue the process
or the tone.
And they're arguing the process.
I've also just noticed that like when people, I find that when people start complaining about tone, they're probably out of their depth, because if somebody can not only tell you what the fuck's up, but do it while snarking at you, they probably know the subject matter, or at least are good enough at rhetoric to pull it off. And so, all they're doing is argue. It's tone policing. This is all tone policing. You're right. They haven't brought up any of the things these people are saying about them. They're not saying this is incorrect or this is incorrect. They're saying, oh, they're so mean and nasty.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Good for you. Welcome to being someone whose name people know. Like welcome to being, if I mention the name Sam Harris in a bar, maybe half of the people would know who I'm talking about. So welcome to that. Sorry it sucks so bad, I guess.
Because their interest is in derailing it. Now, I got into some weird thing just now. Do you know the singer Billy Bragg?
No.
He's like a progressive. He's kind of like a punk Arlo Guthrie or Woody Guthrie, rather.
Yeah.
And like he turns out he wrote a book and he's talking about Eric Weinstein, an investment banker who is a free speech, champion. Won't meet with he's got a whole story in his mind. And
so he took a shot at you in his book.
He went on.
He did take it. This isn't taking a shot at you. This is saying this is what I think about this person. This rhetoric about attacks and taking a shot. It's all very dramatic. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, we attacked Sam Harris on our podcast. I'm going to be like, oh, we made fun of Sam Harris for about an hour and a half last night. It was fantastic.
And if someone did that to us,
we would love it.
Yeah.
We'd be like let's dance, bitch.
We wouldn't be up in arms about you know, oh, this person disagreed with me and called me an idiot, I'd be like, all right, let's chat. Let's you and me.
We did a podcast about an IDW podcast that's about the same size as our podcast just to see if they'd come for us, okay? And they haven't. I even left a comment on their YouTube saying, "Hey, we did a video about this. We think you're wrong. Please and thank you." Oh, but I'm gonna go back. They're talking about this. It's a friend of Sam Cedar's from the Majority Report. Sam's going to come up soon. And by the way, Sam Cedar responded to this, and anybody who hangs out for the post game, we're going to watch that because it's like the proper response. Because he's like basically like, "Come on, let's go." But here, Eric Weinstein's going to complain that some folk singer described him and like, what the fuck? Like the guy doesn't like you. Big fucking deal.
There's that he wrote a book and he's talking about Eric Weinstein, an investment banker who is a free speech, champion, won't meet with, I don't know, he's got a whole story in his mind. And
so he took a shot at you in his book?
He went on Sam Cedar's program.
Oh, well, there's a venue that is not going to select for honest opinions.
I spoke to Sam.
Fuck you.
Like, again, he's just going to say that. He's not going to give any examples. He's not going to be like, "Oh, Sam had this person on and this person's very dishonest and here's what this person's done." Like, he's not going to give any examples because he knows if he starts doing that, we're going to be like, "Oh, really? I remember when you cut, people come back with, hey, I remember when you cut out a part of your podcast because Stefan Molyneux had a sad that somebody called him a Holocaust denier." Like he's not going to say what happened. It's just like, "Oh, that's a bad guy. He's not worthy of the conversation." I think it's okay for him to take a shot at Sam Cedar because Sam Cedar has a loyal following. He's a Majority Report. They kicked him out of the podcast awards for winning. Like he always won.
Well,
news
that kind of like that wasn't even a criticism. That was just an attack.
Yeah, it wasn't. He does this, therefore I think he's a dishonest actor. It was just like, oh, nobody's honest on his show.
Yeah.
It's like he has a different interview guest every fucking day. Like, how do you say that about somebody's show? Oh, and here we go.
Look, there's a problem with the Saul Alinsky thing where Saul Alinsky's rule.
For anybody not listening, the Saul Alinsky thing went around on Fox about fucking 2008, 2009, and they were talking about it, and he wrote a book, Rules for Radicals, and they were talking about it, and it was really funny because someone on their show said it was like a round table or whatever, and they stopped and they're like, "Oh, what do you think?" And the dude just looked right in the camera and goes, "Who is Saul Alinsky?" It's like, nobody knows who that is. What are you talking about? And then they never had the guy on Fox News anymore because nobody knew who this was. But it's the Rules for Radicals thing, and they're trying to say that like this guy's using some sort of tactic from some fucking secret leftist book that tells you how to fucking, I don't know. Like literally, that's what they're going to say here.
I've never heard of this.
It's a book called Rules for Radicals. You might want to read it. It's really interesting.
Okay.
It's just the art of war, but for politics, kind of.
Okay.
For like leftist politics, but it can be applied by anybody. It's not like a perfect work or whatever, but it's a good book. It's interesting to read.
He took a shot at you in his book?
He went on Sam Cedar's program.
Oh, well, there's a venue that is not going to select for
honest
opinions.
I spoke to Sam. Look, there's a problem with the Saul Alinsky thing where Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals.
Rules for Radicals.
The focus on ridicule. I think it's hard to remember, like Country Joe and the Fish was ridiculing a bad war in terms that are ridiculous. You've now got a group of people who, if a mathematician says, that in different arithmetics, you could have an equation like 2 + 3 = 1. And so then you get somebody saying, "Well, I don't know what they're smoking over there at Princeton, but that's ridicule, but you're ridiculing something."
Except that's not funny ridicule. You suck at it, obviously, if that was the best example you come up with.
Yeah. Like ridicule is supposed to be smart.
And funny.
Yeah.
And biggest part, funny. Oh, what are they smoking over there at Princeton? Like, what the fuck is it? The 50s? I mean,
well, like funny is usually smart, It's hard to be funny if you're really dumb.
Thing that you strawmanned and didn't understand,
right?
Because the person actually was making sense. And so what I see is that the left, and in particular the Sam Cedar crowd, has a
doing that with abandon.
Well, it's willing to do two separate things. Sam is quite willing. Like there's this whole thing about, will you talk to Sam Cedar? Will you debate Sam Cedar? And my feeling is I would debate part of Sam Cedar.
Yeah, the part who won't fucking like go after you for the things you've said, right? I'd debate part of him. Could you imagine saying I'd debate part of this person?
I missed what we were saying.
Oh,
I was making a joke on our
I'll go
Twitch
back.
chat.
And in particular, the Sam Cedar crowd has a
doing that with abandon.
Well, it's willing to do two separate things. Sam is quite willing. Like there's this whole thing about, will you talk to Sam Cedar? Will you debate Sam Cedar? And my feeling is I would debate part of Sam Cedar, the part that just is focused on the ideas. But
what
he means to say is I will debate Sam Cedar about ideas unless he gets an idea about me.
Well, I think he's saying I'll debate Sam Cedar on specific topics.
Right, not on is what I am doing harmful, because that's the thing that like.
But like the way he said it was really stupid, because like the way he said it was like, okay, you're not going to debate like the brushing his teeth, Sam Cedar.
Right,
Like,
I'll
yeah.
debate part of him, and it's like, well, yeah, if he's brushing his teeth, he might spit his toothpaste at you if you become too annoying, which is a likely thing. Also, like that,
I'd pay to see that.
You'd probably be involved in a home invasion because most people like don't invite their debate guests to watch them brush their teeth.
the part that is kind of like nasty and ridiculing and doing the Alinsky thing, I don't know what to do with it. I'm not interested. I've spoken to Sam Cedar on the phone. It's perfectly reasonable, made sense to me. We disagreed on positions.
Sam Cedar, but only part of him, only his penis.
He spoke to him on the phone. I bet he was, I don't know. See, like, this is all really weird because, I mean, they're just basically copying to like not wanting to speak to someone because they think that that person's criticism will be too harsh. I think it seems like
that's probably. I mean, I don't want to assume what's going on in their mind, but you know, that's probably why they wouldn't want to debate. You know, that's probably why they're saying I would debate him on like specific things.
Right.
In so many words.
They don't like ridicule. Like, what the fuck? Like, what do you think? Like, Sam Harris comes out of New Atheism specifically. New Atheism started off as a bunch of people making fun of religion openly and without really any remorse for it. That is at least my sort of recollection of New Atheism, at least online when it's.
Yeah. And Sam Harris participated in that.
This is all the exact thing they're often accusing everyone else of doing. They don't want to engage us on the ideas. They're just copying right here that they don't want to engage someone on the ideas. But the other thing is that their sense of what the ideas are is like this very narrow thing, right? When you say, I just want to talk about ideas, but then you decide what an idea can be. Because that's, I think, what's like, without having to like infer or without having to guess, that's sort of what I get from this is that like, oh, I want to talk about ideas with him, but these things he does over here when he expresses himself in this other way, I don't think these are ideas.
Yeah, like I want to talk about ideas, but only the ideas that I think are valid.
Right, and that's some gatekeeping ass shit, and it's fine. Sam Cedar has a bigger platform than Eric Weinstein, not a bigger platform than Sam Harris. And so, like, I don't know, Sam Harris would be doing Sam Cedar a favor, but Eric Weinstein would also be doing Sam Cedar a favor by talking to him on a recording just for a different reason. Just because people would throw a party. Because it would be hilarious. What they don't like is that he's funny. That's what they don't like. They want to engage the Sam Cedar who does the interview for the first 40 minutes of the show where he's talking to like an academic. They want to engage in that way. But they're not going to get that kind of reception because the person whose show it is thinks they're full of shit. So you're not going to put them on like he's a Noam Chomsky or, you know, some person out of, you know, Brooklyn's whatever district who seems pretty cool, who's running for state assembly or whoever they have on for their interview part. They'll get the after the interview part where they make fun of people. And that's just what they'll get. And they don't want that because I don't think that nothing like these guys are just the actually guy, right? Like this kind of stereotypical actually guy. Nothing will ruin the actually guy like being made fun of. If they're trying to sort of like fake smart explain something to you. Mm-hmm. If you are like incredulous to them, like openly so, it wrecks people who like rely on the fact that they're able to give the appearance of being some massive intellect. It just wrecks it, like wrecks the whole way they present themselves, I think, because they present themselves in this sort of high-minded way. And if somebody like comes in and isn't really taking them that seriously because what they're saying isn't really that interesting or new or profound, then it like wrecks their whole premise of the whole thing they're doing. So that's why they won't talk to, they would speak to David Pakman, but it didn't go well for Sam Harris because Dave Pakman kind of made fun of him a little bit and poked fun at his sort of.
He didn't go hard enough though.
But he made fun of him a little bit. He certainly used humor, like as a tool. And so all that's going on here is they don't want to talk to somebody who they think is better at rhetoric than they are. I think humor, being able to like make a point and make a joke at the same time, I think you're going to stick it better than if you just make the point.
But also it helps, being right.
Oh yeah.
These guys don't really have that going for them.
I mean, they're right about certain things, I'm sure. Like they're not going to say everything they say here isn't false. They did say that there's two different versions of what Sam Seder does, but that's literally the show is cut in half. They do an interview and then they do what they call the fun half of the show. It's like we do this and then we do the post game, and the post game will take Discord remote ins. We're making fun of people here, but it's just different. And so they want the interview guy, but they're not going to get the interview because they're not, talking about anything. They're just complaining. This is amazing. I think they're demanding political correctness from Sam Seder right now.
I think it's funny that people listen to this, and I don't mean people like us. Like, obviously, we're listening to it right now, but like, someone's got to be listening to this, just like commiserating with them. Like, yeah, man, it sucks that you can't talk to these guys, and they'll like without them like
saying something you don't like.
Yeah,
which is totally ironic, right? Or saying something you might like if they had just said it in another way. This is all accusing somebody of bad faith, like without any real good reason to do so. I'm going to grab us both another beer. I'll be right back.
Well, the line that gets crossed for me always with these guys, and again, it's disproportionately on the left, is the line of conscious dishonesty. I mean, it's your brother's aphorism: bad faith changes everything.
Bad faith changes everything.
And I mean, these guys are in bad faith. They know they're lying about, in my case, my views, my actual beliefs, and
not all of them.
There's just too much information.
Well, David Pakman,
fucking bad faith. Everybody's coming in bad faith.
Yeah, I know. But David Pakman said some pretty non-charitable things in some parts that seemed kind of ridiculing. And
of me?
I think you, me, other people.
Well, I've never seen him misrepresenting my views.
Did they get to the part where they said they only watched 45 minutes of Sam Seder's show yet?
No, they didn't.
Oh, that's the best part. But they're talking about David Pakman, and they're like, he's like, oh, I talked to him, but he ridiculed me. Oh, now if like he'd done that, are they saying that he wished he wouldn't have talked to somebody?
Well, no, Sam Harris just said like he never misrepresented him. And it's like, yeah, he didn't. He ridiculed you because you're being ridiculous.
Right. And the other thing is, like, I would argue that I don't think that what Majority Report does, it's really important. When they're doing an impression, like when the co-host Michael, who does impressions, when he does a Sam Harris impression, everyone understands that he's not quoting Sam Harris. Like, they're not really misrepresenting him. He's like, oh, you just got to bomb a few Muslims and then you can figure it out. Like, it doesn't mean that he thinks he said that. Like, verbatim. Like, the way in which they're like, oh, it's so, they don't understand satire and how satire is used to, like, make political points and shit. They think it's fucking the rules for radicals.
And it's like, obviously, yeah, Sam Harris isn't going to say that, but it's his ideas taken to the extreme.
Or like, even just a funny version of them, right?
If you do that with anyone's ideas, they become ridiculous.
Right. Even just a funnier version of what he's saying. It doesn't have to be like like politically extreme or whatever, just a funnier version. This is all this is all in very bad faith. They're not being very charitable. He's just saying, oh, I didn't see David Pakman say anything, misrepresent him. So what? Like, it's not for you to decide whose take on what you said is right. Like, you can disagree, but it's not for you to decide. You're free to fucking not talk to people, but you can't have it both ways. You can't act like, oh, I'll talk to anybody, and then you only talk to fucking weird people who are obsessed with Neanderthals and IQ. I don't know. Like, I bet this guy's fucking obsessed with IQ too.
And if I ever got the chance to talk to Sam Harris, I'd ask him, like, what's your problem with Neanderthals? Thalls, Neanderthals.
You'd have to ask him first how to say it so that you don't
Neanderthals.
Tals.
Pakman said some pretty non-charitable things in some parts that seemed kind of ridiculing, and
of me?
I think you, me, other people.
Well, I haven't. I have never seen
David Pakman.
No, David Pakman's fine. I just did his podcast.
Yeah, I know, but David Pakman said some pretty non-charitable things in some parts that seemed kind of ridiculing, and
of me?
I think you, me, other people.
Well, I haven't. I have never seen him misrepresenting my views, and I think that, I don't know him. I just did his podcast once, but he seems like somebody who, if I said, "Listen, you got me wrong here," that would matter, and he would make an effort to get me
and that's
get
the
me
thing,
right.
which is the problem that we have increasingly is that the tactics that are being used in what are called progressive circles have been confused with the content. So that is, the objections to the vehicle, which might be Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals,
which
is conflated with
a
the
totally
payload.
Unethical program for smearing people dishonestly.
Well, it's an immoral technology.
Well, it's an ends justify the means.
That's the big problem on the left.
Yeah. So, but that ethic.
No, it's not.
Like, some people do things you don't like. These people are acting like they're just dudes, right? Who aren't public figures, who aren't giving speeches at universities. You know what I'm saying? They aren't best-selling authors. They're not a huckster with a weird meditation app. Do you know what I'm saying? They're acting, they're sort of, they want it both ways, it seems like, or you would think that, because the way they're talking, they're just two dudes and fucking these people are coming at them for no reason or whatever. And it's like, no.
But like, they're talking about just like regular criticism, and this dude's like, oh, it's an ends justifies the means thing. And it's like, no, someone's just criticizing you, dude.
Right. And if they're doing it in a way that you find is like a problem, maybe you could tell us what they're doing, how it's a problem. Maybe you could say, hey, this really fucking hurts my feelings when you do this. Like, I didn't mean this way, and I wish you would stop doing this. Like, even if you and me would have a party if Sam Harris like freaked out and did that to somebody, at least that's honest. Like, I wish you would stop doing this. I don't mean this stuff this way. I'm trying to think about what I think are tough issues. Like, none of this, though. It's always like, oh, they're being so uncharitable. It rules. And this guy just keeps referring back to some book from the fucking 60s that like 20 people read last year.
Is there anything special about that book? Did that book like...
It's like Mein Kampf for the left. What are you talking about?
I mean, I haven't read it. I don't know I don't know what it's about.
I was kidding. It's fucking just a book. It's sort of like The Art of War, but for like political propaganda and like message spreading. It's more than 20 people read it last year.
Does he think it has some like special significance on the left?
I mean, there are people who probably, there's like punk songs about it. There's a punk song about rules for radicals, and it's telling you to pick up the rules for radicals. It's telling you to read the book. But a punk song telling you to read a book is a good thing, no matter what, I think. Like, any punk song telling you to read a book, read that book.
Maybe not Ayn Rand.
Those are like weird fake punks. I'm gonna keep punk rock, no libertarians allowed. But like this fixation, like the way they're talking about this is that they're not like public figures or public intellectuals who. The point of a public intellectual isn't that their work is being scrutinized by other intellectuals and the common people alike? Isn't that what happens with a public intellectual?
Yeah.
I mean, Could you imagine I disagreed with Christopher Hitchens a lot towards, especially starting around the Iraq War. I disagreed with him, but then he wrote an article saying that he was wrong about the Iraq War, and he outlined how he got it wrong, which is stunning, but not really. But could you imagine Christopher Hitchens going on someone's podcast to complain that someone was making fun of him? Just could you imagine?
No, absolutely not. But yeah,
he would probably have
in that regard, Christopher Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens was a skeptic. And I'm going to gatekeep here a little bit too. He was a true skeptic, the kind of skeptic that could look at something that they had said in the past
and be like, oops.
Yeah. And just legitimately just say like, yo, I got this very wrong. I have been introduced to new evidence, and that new evidence has showed me that I was very incorrect.
But yeah, could you imagine this is all Christopher Hitchens and Eric Weinstein complaining about people making fun of Christopher Hitchens and more the portal? Come on. Christopher Hitchens would have been like, hey, this Sam Cedar's making fun of me. He's like, you know what? We should get a bottle of whiskey and a stage and talk about it. Because that's really what he was. He just showed up to all these things drunk.
But like, that's what I was saying is the thing that like Sam Harris would never do that. Like he wrote that thing a long time ago in defense of profiling.
Torture. Oh, he defended both within like 6 months of each other. One of them was in the HuffPo, and he was wondering why he published some shit in the Huffington Post about defending torture, and everybody criticized him.
But like, he would never rescind that.
Yeah, would it be really hard for him to, at the beginning of one of his podcasts, go, hey, a lot of people have been talking about this article in defense of torture, and I now think that, I was ill-advised, I was wrong. Here, I'm going to be putting something up on my website, like a rehash of that article, how I got it wrong, and I'd like you to, we can all use this as a fucking learning experience that even I got something wrong. He could still talk about how great he is, like right at the end. Even I got something wrong, but no.
Yeah, he just doubles down on fucking everything. Every time he's introduced to some new evidence, he'll just double down on his former opinion.
He's also talking about being misrepresented.
Current opinion.
He's also talking about being misrepresented, and I wonder if he's talking about how they have mentioned several times when people have called into their show to defend Sam Harris. He goes, he's anti-imperialism, anti-war. I don't understand why you guys hate him. They go, hey, he wrote this article in defense of torture, and that doesn't seem very, he may be against the empire, but he's okay. We don't have to think that he's necessarily an imperialist to disagree with him. And then somebody will do an impression of him. They'll laugh, and the person on the phone will get mad because their show's brilliant, way better than what we're doing around here. But this idea, yeah, I can't imagine any, I wouldn't have thought that Sam Harris would be doing this like in the mid 2000s.
Like he's more aligned towards like lawful evil down here in the corner.
Lawful evil.
Yeah, like there's lawful good, lawful neutral. He's lawful evil.
Right.
Program for smearing people dishonestly.
Well, it's an immoral technology.
Well, it's an ends justify the means.
That's the big problem on the left.
Yeah. So, but that ethic is flawed, right? So for instance, I mean, like with me and Trump, like there's nobody who
you don't like the guy.
Denigrates Trump as avidly as I do, but I am super careful, to be honest. Right. So it's not that anything you can smear him with is fair.
Because you can be, Sam. I mean, the problem with some
all these guys can be. Sam Cedar can be honest on his show and still have a show. Right. Nobody's going to cancel him because he was too honest.
No, I think that there's like this very weird other. I mean, Sam, I don't want to get into the Sam Cedar thing in particular. First of all, because he's going to do an entire show. We know you.
That's right. No doubt. Sam. Yeah. He'll take these quotations and
but he has he has Pac-Man's ability to reason. I mean,
this is the banality of evil, right? Like, there's not that many evil people, right? There's just a lot of people who are functioning in some normal mode with normal incentives, and they become assholes because they're not heroes, right? But so like it takes some work not to be an asshole when you're incentivized to be one, and we're all vulnerable to this. But there's some people who have just cashed in. Go for it.
I like how he talked about people cashing in. I think Sam Harris probably brought in more money than the Majority Report did last year off of there, because he's got that weird meditation app that he's charging the sycophants for.
He has a meditation app?
You think? Yes.
What? I've never heard of this.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Maybe there's a commercial for it. Maybe there's a fake commercial for it that we could play. If there
Can
isn't,
I
we
look
should-
one up?
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end here anyway.
That nonsense on the left makes me crazy because in part it just feels like all of my ideals turned into some piece of crap
we're of the left.
Not only the left, man. I came from a farther left part than I don't even know where you started. But
I've never been tempted to be anything other than a Democrat. I've never even said I'm going to be an independent because the Democratic Party isn't
certainly
me.
if I could move to another party that made sense, I'd do it at this point. Anyway, I think that what we don't really understand is that there's a homelessness problem that is really significant. If you are the sort of a person who needs to attach to some kind of institutional structure in a time when there is no institution that actually holds your perspective, you're going to start to do very bizarre things. Now, the thing about you and me is that to some extent, and I don't think we can do this long term, we're okay with being homeless.
More about this during red light or the post game, because they're talking about,
What was that last part?
he's basically saying we don't have an intellectual home. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Being intellectually homeless or whatever. More on this during the post game, because that's a very bizarre thing to say. Like, this guy's podcast launched and probably had hundreds of thousands of downloads within 48 hours of the first episode of this show. Like, this is absurd. They're just complaining that people make fun of them.
This is weird.
I'm glad they spent this much time on Sam Cedar. Stick around for the post game, everybody, because the majority report clip about this is quite good.
Right? You can sort of first principles, try to think your way out of stuff. But it's very tough for most people. And I think that there are these sort of collection points in the adaptive landscape of politics. Would you disagree with that?
What the fuck is a collection point in the adaptive landscape of politics? What the fuck does that mean?
It means you ordered a salad, but you didn't specify which, so you got a word salad.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well, one thing that seems important is the connection to science. I mean, we're not spending a lot of time talking about science in this mode, but the dispassion and self-criticism that is the only rubric under which real science can be done.
Is that why you host a talk show where you fucking complain about people criticizing you all the time? Because science is self-critical and that's just not going to work? I think that's like what's going on here. He describes science as self-critical after complaining about people criticizing him for fucking 10 minutes. It just seems like a very strange juxtaposition is like all I'm saying.
Is he a scientist? He's not a scientist, right?
Well, he's got a degree in neuroscience, but he's not like working in the field. Like my pops used to always say, I was like, oh, you're a scientist. He's like, hey man, I'm management now. I haven't done science in a very long time. He's like, I wouldn't put myself in the lab with those people.
I mean, I studied computer science and I've never done any science.
Right. I mean, yeah, but I mean, like, I think it depends on your definition. I think that a scientist is somebody who does like scientific research, that works in the sciences day in and day out, right?
Yeah.
So if you were like some sort of material scientist and you were working for, I don't know, a company that makes SSDs, right? Because they need material scientists, but then you move up the ranks and now you're the CFO or the CTO. You ain't no scientist anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean that that's not your background. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do that work again. It just means that that's not what you're doing right now. You're an executive. You're a management.
So Sam Harris is not a scientist.
He's a talk show host. He's a talk show host and apparently a meditation expert.
Bleeds into our thinking about all these other issues. I mean, I think that's got to be a relevant variable. It's like you either have a scientific cast of mind or you don't. And when you don't,
I have both.
Right, but when you don't,
wait, what?
He has both. Whatever the other option is, he does and doesn't.
The other option was you don't have that.
Yeah, well, this Eric Weinstein, I'm sorry, he's like the Shep, like of Larry, Curly, and Moe. Well, he's Shep of the IDW. He's like the guy that I don't know. Maybe Shep was smarter than them. Maybe but he's like definitely not the intellectual powerhouse. Like, if I was gonna rate like raw, like what I perceive their raw problem solving horsepower to be, he's like definitely like like probably right above Dave Rubin. Like, because nobody's as dumb as Dave Rubin, but
that was actually a true dichotomy, what he just said, and he responded with like, "Oh, well, I'm both."
Well, to be fair, the dichotomy that Sam Harris proposed was stupid because you don't just have a fucking science mind.
Well,
like,
that's true. Yeah,
we talk about this a lot, and I like bang
the way
on,
he put it was a true dichotomy.
Yeah, I like hammer skeptics on this. I'm like, you're not a critical thinker. You can engage in critical thinking and you can endeavor to do it and try to remember to do it, but you're not a critical thinker. So your mind isn't a scientific mind. Everybody's mind is capable of engaging in scientific thought and skepticism and critical thinking, right? It's not like you become that. It's just a thing that maybe you practice it more.
So maybe I'm criticizing the wrong person. I should criticize Sam Harris here and say, like,
I know both.
You're putting that as a dichotomy, but it is not a dichotomy.
Like, I think maybe Weinstein was right. Both. Criticize them both, because what Weinstein said was fucking stupid too, because we have to operate under the assumption that he's taking Sam Harris seriously, right?
When really that was a perfect opportunity to be critical of something Sam Harris said.
He goes, hey, that seems like a dichotomy and we don't always all think that way.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, because then you've come to this in bad faith and I'm out of here.
But it's like saying, either you're standing or you're not. Like, yes, that is a true dichotomy, but it doesn't hold throughout all time.
And it's irrelevant. It like doesn't matter, because either you're standing or you're not. That's fine. But that doesn't tell you. It tells you that if you're standing, but you could be sitting, laying down, crouching, kneeling. It gives you very little information if you're not standing.
Yes, true.
Except that
it's like, out of all these switches, this switch is either on or off.
Right.
Okay, cool.
You're not seeing the. You're not even seeing intellectual dishonesty for what it is, right? It's just like motivated reasoning isn't a bad thing, right? Wishful thinking isn't a bad thing. Confirmation bias isn't a bad thing. These are virtues. This is in religion. This is faith.
Wait, whoa! Did he just try to say that the left? I don't know where we're at now. He's trying to
Is he saying that, or is he saying we're saying that?
I presume he's probably saying that people who are more or less of our persuasion are saying that.
Okay.
But he won't name us, which is really disappointing, because I
should name us specifically.
I want Squarespace to email me and tell me that they think my site is being DDoSed.
Name Etchoplex Media specifically. For anyone who didn't understand that, we had a voicemail that said Etchoplex.
Right. This is
well, this is like always the issue with our friend Jordan Peterson, which is that when he gets really far out there in the, I don't know, people now call mythopoetic.
Thinking isn't a bad thing. Confirmation bias isn't a bad thing. These are virtues. This is in religion. This is faith.
L. Ron Peterson.
Right. This is
well, this is like always the issue with our friend Jordan Peterson, which is that when he gets really far out there in the, I don't know, people now call mythopoetic. I don't know the lingo.
Yeah.
Did you say mythopoetic? When he gets out there and gets all mythopoetic, you know what that means? Mythopoetic is like fake smart people language for word salad. Anybody ever tries to tell you some shit is mythopoetic, you're like, you don't say anything. Let them have their moment, because you don't want to try to get away from them, because they're probably going to talk to you about race and IQ. But let them have their moment. Understand that they mean word salad, and then just assume that they said word salad and then respond accordingly. He said mythopoetic. Like this is
I don't think that's a word.
Like if somebody was going to satire the idea of a public intellectual, it would sound like this.
Fact checking.
Are we getting into Poe's law territory here?
As long as those two facilities are present and in dialogue, and as long as the fact checking, what we call the scientific method is in some sense inadequate to me to explain how science has progressed.
Right.
All the mad thinking and then the spirituality of coming up with breaking new ground doesn't happen.
You just gave us Ramanujan about an hour ago. Yeah. So he's having dreams about the goddess Lakshmi handing him theorems.
Well, there's that.
So,
that person fucking probably already figured out the theorem, didn't know it, and like your mind is an amazing fucking thing for a neuroscientist to say that there's anything spiritual about thinking, about being like a mathematician, which is what I assume this person is, and thinking that some god gave you the answer or some theorem while you were asleep is a bonkers ass thing to say if this guy's like a neuroscientist. I don't know shit about neuroscience, but I know that like when you get a revelation, when you figured something out, it doesn't matter when it comes to you. That ain't magic.
Correct.
You figured it out. It doesn't matter if it came to you while you were jacking off, having sex, taking a shit. It doesn't matter. If you figured something out, you figured it out, and good for you.
And like figuring stuff out in your dreams actually happens a lot, and it's like pretty normal. And you know, the people that attribute it to anything more than just your brain working while you're asleep
are probably not a neuroscientist. I'm going to go out on a limb here. We're going to go back 15 seconds. I'm going to go out on a limb here and suggest that most okay, like if you're just being polite and you're a neuroscientist, you'd go, oh yeah, of course, spirituality. But he just brought up a thing, like a thing that stands for like here.
You're right.
All the mad thinking and then the spirituality of coming up with breaking new ground doesn't
you just
happen.
gave us Ramanujan about an hour ago. Yeah, so he's having dreams about the goddess Lakshmi handing him theorems.
Well, there's that, the Carolist school of
yeah, that's absurd for a person who's supposed to be a neuroscientist to say. That's absurd because I know that that's different than psychology, which is it's probably more on the psychology or like the cognitive sciences end of things than like than neuroscience. But those are like adjacent fields, and you would have some knowledge of the people in those other fields, right? And he just said some spiritual thing or whatever, Heather, where it's trying to separate these things out, and the guy's just like, oh, they got a theorem in a dream. It's like, that's not...
But he wasn't agreeing with it, was he?
Well,
was he agreeing with it?
You know what? Whatever we think he said, he never said that. It's all very...
Listening to it again, it doesn't sound like he was agreeing with it. It sounded like maybe he was almost even trying to make fun of it. But, I mean...
We'll do this. This show is...
Sam Harris is bad at humor.
We could have also called this show pedantic, actually. We'll do it again.
Thinking and then the spirituality of coming up with breaking new ground doesn't happen.
You just gave us Ramanujan about an hour ago. Yeah, so he's having dreams about the goddess Lakshmi handing him theorems.
Well, there's that, the Carolist school of astronomy that came up with infinite series before Newton and Leibniz was doing it in religious poetry. It rhymed, I think, over there in Kerala. So there is a kind of madness that you have to invite to break new ground, and there's a kind of sanity that you have to invite to wrestle with the madness. And our friend Dan Barkay came up with this idea that science is a two-front war, but that most people have only been deployed to one front.
You don't have to be crazy to come up with good shit. Like, the fact that some people that do come up with good ideas are crazy doesn't mean like that's a weird way to extrapolate like, hey, this group of people who came up with it with good ideas are crazy, therefore all people who come up with good ideas are crazy.
It's like just the legend of the mad scientist.
Yeah,
essentially, I think that's like fair to like call that. That's just the legend of the mad scientist. Makes for good fucking movies and cartoons and shit, right? But it's like absolutely not true. Like, or yeah. I mean, some people seem mad or whatever, but they're just weird. They're just different than you. I don't even know that. Like I don't know. Maybe people thought people doing the science were mad back in the day because they weren't like doing the religion, and that's why like they. I mean, I don't know. We don't know where it came from, right? It's like legends are kind of hard to track down.
Maybe they were just saying jokes and people didn't get the jokes.
I guarantee no mad scientist ever fucking went and talked to somebody for 2 hours about how they were being criticized.
And I think that's a really nice image. I do worry that in part the activist mindset, particularly on the left, has a very clear idea, which is that, it's really a shame the number of people who have to get hurt for justice to be done.
Right. Like nobody's saying that.
Yeah, fuck off.
Oh, by the way, that's been America's foreign policy fucking basically since the end of World War II.
Like the left literally wants to like stop people from hurting.
Well, and I mean, it's like what I believe is, I believe like what I believe, and I'm a leftist. I think me and you are generally in the same place on almost everything, like politically. And I want first and foremost, I want our government to stop doing all that shit to people on the other side of the world. Like, I guess let them do it to each other intervene maybe if we have to, but maybe try to do diplomacy and get people to stop doing it because we're like, hey, we'd hate to have to like just start dropping bombs.
Like intervene if the government is like, we're just going to keep killing our people. Then intervene.
Right. But this whole thing, they think they're like, when they say we don't care who has to get hurt as we try to get what we want, I think they're fucking, I think he's talking about himself and Sam Harris being criticized on Twitter based on what they were saying before. Like,
that's what they mean.
You think so? What else am what else am I supposed to believe? Are the leftists, are there fucking, is like Stalin coming through with tanks? I mean, what the fuck? Like, what else am I supposed to believe except that they're talking about the thing they were just talking about? Because this is like what
fucking enormous victim complex right here.
If they're not talking about that, then they certainly haven't made it very clear. And I question them as communicators of I question them as members of the marketplace of ideas, is what I'm saying. Is like the only thing that you could believe off of that is that they're talking about like getting hurt, like in the marketplace of ideas. And it's like, dude, you're getting your asses kicked in the marketplace of ideas, and you're mad about it because now everybody could tweet at you, and you can't block everyone who doesn't like you because there's a lot of them.
Wait, do I have something about blocking on the?
Oh yeah, it's a Madison. It's I'm block happy. I must have at least 3,000 people blocked. That's a low number too, by the way. It's like bottom rightish on the Madison page.
Let's go with this one.
Arguably the most trolled girl on the internet.
And that is a highly conserved idea that I had not understood was broadly distributed.
Yeah. But I mean, that is an ethic or a pseudo ethic that we have to just relentlessly criticize because it's so much.
What if I want to relentlessly criticize your ethic, Sam Harris? Like, what the fuck? We're going to relentlessly criticize this ethic. Great. I'm relentlessly criticizing yours. What now? Like, this is all so frustrating.
Harm gets done. I mean, that is the thinking that allows good people or otherwise good people to create immense harm. It's like, let's throw them off the rooftops because they the purge is on, and it's sorry we have to break these many eggs to make this omelet.
But partially,
well, like, yeah, I agree with you about that, but you're not talking about the left right now.
Or anything that's happening in the United States where you live at all.
Yeah. Like, you're talking about, like, some like, fictional authoritarian United States where, like, the left is just, like, out bombing things, and I don't know.
No, they're out to get Sam Harris in this thing. You have to understand that this all goes back to, like, I would love to have him go to what he thinks is a psychotherapist. This is all totally illegal and nobody should ever do this, and have him like pour his innermost secrets out, because there's got to be something going on where either that or they just know that it's good for them to like talk about this criticism like it's beneath them or something. It's this weird thing going on where I think they're like, where I think that maybe the way they view this is that they're on like a big layer cake, right? And that they're at the top of the layer cake. And why is anybody down here who swears on their podcast even trying to criticize them? Like, I feel like it's sort of one of those pearl clutching kind of things, because it's not like if the Queen of England criticized him, he'd be immediately trying to have her on his podcast. So I think it's like almost the form of what's being said over the substance of what's being said in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Like, because the form is not this sort of boring form. Like we're not adversarial with one another, but we don't do this form. Like, this form, you and Matt didn't do this form. This is boring. You and Matt crack jokes.
Yeah. They haven't told any jokes. But these are two unfunny guys.
Man, I would pay to watch either of them try to do fucking 5 minutes of stand-up comedy.
But like, they're trying to be intellectual right now.
That's the problem, is I think that they're both probably pretty smart guys, but maybe if they stopped trying to be an intellectual, like they would have a lot more fun with like the fame that they have. It also seems like they don't even enjoy that they have notoriety. Like, it seems like a joyless notoriety. Like, It seems like they take no pleasure in being listened to by massive amounts of men. And I do mean men.
Yeah. And like they don't appreciate the power, the influence that they have, because they could use that for good. They could promote good ideas on their podcasts, on their platforms.
Right. They could spend this whole time, like, I know they're both for single payer. Why didn't they spend I listened to this whole thing. I had to know where to like kind of try to do the show. They mentioned single payer, but they could have spent 30 minutes on like the arguments for single payer.
Rather than 30 minutes on why are we being criticized?
The other thing
Unfair.
is inside of all of this, where inside of this was ad hominem attacks on Sam Cedar, who, by the way, relishes that shit the same way we would, but also Ina, like, who she's got like, I don't know, 12 or 20,000 followers on Twitter. Like, she's not, like, it's different. She's not like doing whole bits about them and making fun of them every day on her show, because her show's like a weekly show and she does interviews, and she's like I don't understand why they even like brought her up. Like, that's fucking weird. We would relish that, but like, she's like, her Twitter is bigger than ours, but she's like probably right around where we are in like the pecking order of kind of all of the things, you know? And it's like, it's really weird that they would reach down and do that. And she's a woman, and she's like a Middle Eastern woman who's an ex-Muslim, but doesn't like these people. Also doesn't like Islam. So she's probably getting all kinds of fucking weird, like tweets and shit from having even been mentioned on this. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, maybe Weinstein, but Sam Harris shouldn't even entertain that. He's so much bigger. It's so weird. Mm-hmm. We're probably bigger than Scientology, but that's because they lie about their membership. They have way more property than us in a bigger studio. But I think like at any given time, is like, even right now, like nobody's really watching this, but at any given time, are more people watching the Scientology network or us? Like, you know,
but like in Sam Harris's case, he's just punching down, like I said before. And I feel like Sam Harris he doesn't really, I don't know if he ever punches up.
Like, he says he doesn't like Trump, but when he describes the thing he doesn't like about Trump, he doesn't say that the guy's a fucking racist. He basically said, it's a tone. Again, it's he's uncouth. He's a poor representative of our country. He says that he may have said that Trump is obviously racist, but we listened to that one about white supremacy, and I want to say that he like kind of said that he wasn't sure about Trump, but I don't remember exactly, because he said a lot of dumb shit in the one we listened to about him and white supremacy. I was very angry. Like, but when he criticizes Trump, it's mostly like bad decisions and optics. It's not, hey, this guy's totally racist and I don't want to live in a racist country. So
it's not the things that normal people would complain about Trump.
Right. It's all these sort of, oh, well, he's not statesmanlike and all this shit. And it's like, well, if somebody wasn't statesmanlike and they were doing a great job and fucking helping people and using the office to everyone's benefit, that I wouldn't care, but they'd maybe the same criticism.
Like, that's what someone would complain about Trump if they were just perfectly fine with the racism. Right. If they were just like, yeah, it's cool that he's racist, but he's not
civil
about it.
Yeah, he's not civil about it. He should learn to use his words more effectively.
The question is, how do we spend enough time together to get past this problem? Like, I really think it's quite serious that.
Well, part of it is that we're not actually doing much of this face to face, right? Like, I've never met Nassim, I've never met Sam Cedar, I've never met they shouldn't have been in the same sentence. They have very different problems, but.
I'd like to unpack that one. He just said those two people have very different problems, which is really weird because I think his problem is that they criticize Sam Harris. Oh, shit. We should probably get out of here soon. Or not get out of here, but move on to the other side of this show. Hey, everybody.
We do want to look at the Sam Harris meditation app.
Yeah, is there an advertisement for it?
I'm sure there is.
If you look it up on YouTube, do you think there's an ad for it?
He fucking owns wakingup.com.
Yeah, that used to be the name of his podcast, but then people started making fun of him, saying that that's what conspiracy theorists and like moonchild people would say about their experiences becoming, I got woke on this and that. And so he changed it to his podcast to Making Sense. And he's like, oh, this will be perfect for my meditation grift. I'll use Waking Up for my meditation grift.
I wonder how much he paid for wakingup.com.
He got it when he first started doing his podcast, so maybe he didn't have to pay that much for it. His podcast is like,
unless he did that in like 1998.
Oh yeah, he might have paid a lot for it. Yeah. I'm sure he could afford it.
I mean, I've considered buying some domains that were like several $1,000s. Wakingup.com, I'm sure it was like more than that.
Yeah, like 10 grand, 20 grand, something.
Yeah.
Like the interest
More
that he
like
earned,
that.
the interest that he earned last quarter on his on his savings account. Any song you got to hear, buddy? We're going to get out of here. Thanks everybody for listening to the podcast version of the show. I appreciate it. Really the live shows where it's at though.
I got to hear Chocolate.
All right, here's the not 5-year-long version of Chocolate by Kenny Thomas and the Southern Baptists.
Echoplex Media streams 7 days a week on twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. With a variety of hosts and topics, there's bound to be something you'll like. or hate so much you can't stop watching it. All times are Pacific. Check out our full schedule at echoplexmedia.com.